Hey everyone, it's Jyoti Reiki, and I just finished speaking to Mario Kranjac. He's the former mayor of Englewood Cliffs. He's a Republican running for governor here in New Jersey. We talked a little bit about some of his priorities and his perspectives, so take a listen. Thank you all so much for joining us. I am here with Mayor Mario Kranjac, the former mayor of Englewood Cliffs, and you are running for governor.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Let's start off with you telling some of the voters who are going to be watching this video a little bit about where you stand on some priorities and why you decided to run for governor.
Sure. Well, I'll do it backwards. I decided to run after seeing the other candidates not gaining any traction after 9 years of one guy running and spending lots of money, including taxpayer money. Another guy running for a year, a guy who's not really a Republican. At the end of January, there was a poll done, not my poll, somebody else's poll. It showed that 47% of New Jersey Republican primary voters were still undecided. And this is after all those guys have been at it for over a year. And speaking with a guy who's endorsed me, who you'll know, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, we decided to run, and some of the Trump people as well that we spoke with. And the reason was because I was listening to what they were saying, and most importantly, what they were saying was okay, but I didn't think that they were capable, any one of them were capable of actually doing anything they said they were going to do, because either they took money from people who would stop them from doing what they said they would do, or they've never done it before. So I'm the only candidate, I believe, who's capable of doing it and able to do it, because I'm not beholden to anyone, just like when I was mayor of Englewood Cliffs. I was able to make a lot of changes and fight the system, and now I want to fight the system on the behalf of all of New Jersey.
So what are some of your priorities?
So the priority number one is to make the whole state affordable for everyone, and not just for the people that the legislature or governor or judges decide need affordability. So we should make the state affordable. It should be the American dream, just like it was when my parents came to America. I'm first generation. My parents came from a former communist country, and we had the American dream. It was from my sisters and me and my family. There's been no place better than America, and I know a lot of your viewers share that sentiment as well. We need to end the sanctuary state status.
Okay.
All right, we just need to end it. It costs us too much money. We have 500,000 illegal aliens in America, in New Jersey right now. It costs us $7 billion a year. We have a budget that's $58 billion. We need to have it more at 40, more like 40, 43 maybe. 7 right off the top right there. We need to take that money and put it back into New Jersey and let people who are deported apply to come back properly and lawfully. That's fine. Legal immigration is great. That's how my family got here. I know a lot of your viewers as well. But we need to fix the system. We need to fix our schools. We need to stop indoctrinating our children and start educating them. In Englewood Cliffs, we did that. We educated, we did not indoctrinate. I forbid critical race theory, social emotional learning, diversity, equity, inclusion programs, and inappropriate books from being in our schools. Schools are there to teach the basic things: American history, civics, math, science, English. And then parents should be able to teach children what they want, when they want, and if they want. The government is not the parent. It's the parent's responsibility, and it's their right to do that, and not to have the government interfere with all that. And then, of course, our taxes are way too high. You know, in Englewood Cliffs, I did something which is now being done under a fancy name. It's called Doge. When I did it in 2016, 17, 18, we didn't call it Doge. We just called it common sense. We looked at our budget. We cut out all the fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption, and we had a lot of it. You know, I was the first Republican mayor in 42 years. Englewood Cliffs was a Democrat-controlled town. There was a machine that controlled it. The same father and son controlled Englewood Cliffs for 42 years. And I did it on a dare, and I won. And I won by a bigger margin the second time. Now, most importantly, I self-imposed a 2-term limit. And
Right.
The term limits are really important for New Jersey because we have so many bad decisions being made by so many people who have been in office for way too long. They need to leave. Younger people need to come in, new ideas, harder worker. Politics should not be a career. It should be your duty. I didn't get paid as mayor, and that was the perfect formula for doing this. That's the way our country was set up in the first place, was you get in, you do your civic duty, and you get out. You let somebody else, with new ideas, like the people in this room should come in and be in office, right? But when you have the same people over and over, it doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, you touch on several topics that
Yeah.
are very important to our voters. Affordability, of course, immigration, education, and I want to get to each of them.
All right.
And let's start first with affordability. So that is probably the top issue. I think that in a recent poll of Asian American voters here in New Jersey, the majority, they did say that the economy was the top issue for them, and I'm sure that sentiment is echoed across the state. They want to ask you what you plan on doing to make it easier for people to live in New Jersey, raise their families here in New Jersey, also retire here in New Jersey.
Yeah, we need to keep our great minds in New Jersey after they get educated by our great universities. And then when people live their life here, they should be welcome to stay here and not be priced out. So at both ends of life, we need to fix New Jersey. And the way you do this is what I touched on earlier. We waste so much money, if you're spending $7 billion on people who are here illegally, that's from all your hardworking viewers' pockets, all the taxpayers' pockets, including my own, right? And we spend so much and we waste so much, including on candidates. The state of New Jersey has given $31 million out to people who are trying to become governor on both parties. I don't take that money. And it's just not fair. It's like another tax on our taxpayers. When you have a state where people are working so hard, paying so many taxes, and you have 99,000 people who are food insecure, and you have 12,000 people who are unhoused, 1,200 of who are veterans, to have candidates for governor take $31 million seems insane when you have people who actually need to be helped. And that's a side issue, but it's an important issue because we need to highlight priorities. And taking care of people is a priority. And also taking care of people who work hard, pay taxes, want to educate their children. That's a priority. When my parents came to America, they had to work hard. I actually didn't speak English till kindergarten because we didn't speak English at home. My parents learned English with us. So it was important, and it's part of the American dream, the American assimilation, where everybody works hard and no one's really given anything unless they really need it, and then we support those people and we help them either through education or programs. The sanctuary state status hurts everyone. Because it's so artificial. It's just a gimmick for people like Governor Murphy to pretend they feel good when they go to bed, and it makes no sense. Everyone has taken an oath of office who's in elected office or law enforcement to uphold the Constitution of the United States. So when you have a governor not doing that, you have to question why, and I invited ICE to visit him and ask him themselves, So
Okay.
yeah, we need to work on New Jersey. It's a bit of a do-over at this point, in terms of what kids used to say in the playground. It's a do-over. This is a do-over. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. You did touch upon immigration and education. Those are definitely important issues to our viewers and voters across New Jersey. So let's start first with education.
Right.
You may be familiar with the API curriculum mandate.
Right.
So that was passed in 2022, and just to give you a little bit of brief background, that goes through contributions of Asian Americans on, American history. So you mentioned that you don't support DEI, so would you support that curriculum mandate?
I support all history that's been lived, right, as it was lived. So yes, that's part of it. Anyone who's lived history should have that history recorded. We shouldn't rewrite the history as some of the more woke people in public office today want to do and pretend, just play pretend in terms of contributions. Contributions are important. Every immigrant who came here and worked hard contributed to a great history in this country. My parents and other people's. I don't know your background, but this was important for our history because American history is set, but you learn from history. And what happened during the craziness of the last 10 years is people want to forget our history. And if you don't have a history, you only have a present time. You don't have a future. So history is important, and contributing to that history is important. So we need to teach it.
Okay, so you would be supportive of teachers receiving training to learn more about Asian American contributions, and whether that's, the first Asians to settle here in America, whether
Sure,
that's
of course.
okay.
Of course.
And would you fund it then?
It should be part of the curriculum and part of the funding, yes, but all people who have contributed should be part of that program, right? So it's not specific to one group or another, but everyone who's contributed, teachers should teach about it, but not change the history is what we're being told to do recently, yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit more about language access.
Sure.
Because you mentioned that English was your second language
It
as
was,
well.
yeah.
And that's something that
Yeah.
maybe our viewers don't know. So New Jersey has one of the highest number of limited English proficient residents. Asian Americans have the highest number, and they're also linguistically very diverse. So last year, Governor Murphy signed into law the bipartisan language access law. Are you familiar with that?
This 7 languages? For
Yes,
all
the 7
official,
priority languages. Yeah, and so then the data disaggregation law, that also takes effect this July. So do you support the full implementation of these laws, and how would you prioritize them?
Actually, I think that the best money spent for a nation and for a state is on teaching everybody a common language.
Okay.
I want people to preserve their family's languages and cultures. Of course, my family did. My wife's family did as well. But the only way you could really assimilate into America and live the American dream fully is to learn a common language. So we need to spend money on educating people as well. My parents didn't speak English. I didn't speak English until kindergarten. The way they learned is the way I learned. They would do our homework with us, basically, and they would learn. And my parents were just, they were fully fluent within a couple of years. And it's great. It served them well because they could communicate with everyone, not just their own family and their own culture.
Okay. So just so I'm clear, you don't support then translating these vital documents into these 7 priorities, do you?
Vital documents, fine,
Okay.
yes, of course, because we don't want people to miss out on programs and benefits that are available to them. But again, I want people to learn a common language, and it's important for them. And personally as well, if they're coming to America, they need to learn English, right?
So how would
Or
you?
New Jerseyan.
Well, that's a whole nother
That is a whole
language,
other
right?
language,
Or
yes.
North Jersey, South Jersey, Central.
Exactly,
Depends.
yes, dialect.
Yeah, but what would your solution be then to, is it education? Like,
Yes.
would you fund then people? Like, what, you tell me.
Of course, that's money well spent. Whenever you're educating people, that is money really well spent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. We need to get to immigration, of course. I'm sure that you're familiar with Delaney Hall and what's going on in Newark with, reports that potentially migrants have been said to being housed there before permits have been put in place. So just your response to what's happening at Delaney Hall and the potential that migrants are being housed there right now without proper permits.
So look, we need to restore law and order for everyone in New Jersey, just as we did in Englewood Cliffs. If you're part of the former mayor's regime and machine, you were no longer able to do things unlawfully, and I did that. And it's better for everyone because there's no resentment. Here is also a safety issue, right? If you don't have permits to have people living in a certain place, it's not fair to those people, it's not safe to those people, and it's irresponsible for Governor Murphy and his fellow travelers to permit that to happen. I mean, we need to enforce law and order. And also, again, you solve that problem by no longer being a sanctuary state, right? I mean, if you're here illegally, you shouldn't be here. I've traveled all over the world, and I've gotten visas and permits to be in places. You, I'm sure, have done the same thing. There's law and order. You're not a country if you don't have a border.
So should migrants be housed there right now? Like the fact that they're potentially there right now as we're speaking?
No.
Okay.
No. And we should let President Trump do what President Trump is doing, which is making sure that people are removed, repatriated back to their country so that they could apply to come back here lawfully. Because the Biden committee that ran the country ignored our borders. And without borders, like I said, you're not a country.
Right. Do you support the opening of more of these privately owned detention centers here in the state?
No. We don't need them. These people should leave if they're here illegally. We'll take care of them as long as they're here before they're removed, of course, but it's not the state's job.
Okay. So what is your plan then? Because, so would you just immediately, they have to be apprehended in some way, and then they have to be housed in the interim, I suppose. So you tell me, what is your plan then for someone who's undocumented? Do you just directly ship?
Right, so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Sure.
New Jersey is a state. New Jersey is not a country. New Jersey does not have an immigration policy. This is a federal issue.
Yes.
States have been preempted. Governor Murphy and, as I said, all his fellow travelers have no say in immigration. They have no say. They could go to another country and pretend they do, but as long as we're in New Jersey, we're part of America. The federal government controls immigration, and these are the federal government's issue. They need to deal with these unlawful migrants. However, the federal government tells us to take care of them. We as a state will do that. And the federal government will pay us to do that. But it's not for you and me and other state of New Jersey taxpayers to solve a federal problem that was created by Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden said our borders were secure. In fact, we all now know that they were not secure. Despite the gaslighting that went on for the last 4 years, our borders were porous, they were open. Joe Biden invited them back, invited people to come here under his so-called executive orders. And before him, President Obama had executive orders. Now, when President Trump has an executive order, nobody wants to follow them at the judiciary because somehow the judiciary is saying that Donald Trump's executive orders are not as valid as the prior two presidents, which makes no sense, right? So, he's got the right to do what he's doing, and we as a state have to follow what he does and what he says we have to do. Governor Murphy really should resign because he's violated his oath of office, and I call upon ICE to have him resign, or even worse, prosecuted for doing what he's done, along with every other sanctuary mayor, sanctuary state governor. This is not the way you run a country, and President Trump is doing a great job.
Okay, so I want to ask you, do you believe that migrants, no matter their status, should and can contribute to our state? You may know that at least 1.7 million Asian Americans are undocumented. So do you...
If you're undocumented, you cannot lawfully contribute.
Okay.
You can't. Because to contribute, you need to be here lawfully. Otherwise, we're just playing pretend with our laws. And if you don't have a border and if you don't follow your laws, you don't have a country.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to get to laws and following the laws, but just one question that our voters do want to know. So if you can just give me a yes or a no. Do you support then, I'm assuming the answer would be no, but I want you to tell me, do you support codifying the New Jersey Immigrant Trust Directive through the New Jersey Immigrant Trust Act? And do you support full funding for the Defense and Deportation Initiative?
So those are two questions.
Yes. So the first one, Immigrant Trust Directive through the New Jersey Immigrant Trust Act.
And saying, what does that say?
Sure. So that it provides protections for residents if they were to approach like law enforcement.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
And so then funding for the Defense and Deportation Initiative. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay.
They should be deported, and we shouldn't be funding it. The federal government will fund that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. So I also want to talk about law and the relationship that the community is perhaps attempting on both ends. I'm sure they're attempting to make relationships with law and mental health. So what I'm asking you is, what are your plans to build that bridge and identify that gap that exists between law enforcement and mental health initiatives?
I don't know that there is a gap.
Okay.
What is the gap?
So I ask because, are you familiar with Victoria Lee?
No.
So she is a 25-year-old from Fort Lee who was killed in a police encounter when she was going through a mental health. Yeah, so she was going through a mental health episode. So, there has been some legislation, some talks about just how that relationship between police and mental health can be bolstered. So, people like Victoria Lee aren't killed during a mental health episode.
So look,
Sure.
The use of deadly physical force should be at very, very, very last resort. We've had incidents also in Patterson where somebody had a crisis, and there's also responsibility for the family members and friends of these people to alert police to say, somebody is having a breakdown, an episode, as long as they're not harming anyone, give them space to calm down and then to be given the proper care that they need. I mean, they're crying out for help, obviously, if they're having these breakdowns and something has gone wrong, and I would say drastically wrong in their lives, and you hate to see that, but you also want to make sure everyone's safe, including our law enforcement. So there needs to be, as I say, make good decisions before you use deadly physical force. If you could restrain without resorting to deadly physical force, then restrain. Okay. If backing off is going to be a better solution in the interim until there's a calmness and people aren't in direct line of violence, back off. Let it blow it off. I've been on the board of the Guardian Angels in New York for about 17 years. This is the unarmed street patrol group in New York, and I've been on their board of directors. They're unarmed, and since 1979, we've had a great track record of de-escalating.
Okay.
And working with police worldwide. We're in 142 cities worldwide. And you don't necessarily need deadly physical force, or any force for that matter, but again, we need to make sure everyone is safe, and it's just unfortunate that our society has gone in the direction of legalizing certain drugs, and they become gateway drugs in a lot of ways, and you have a lot of these incidents. So it's really the legislators who could care less about people until they do something crazy, and then they're the first ones out there protesting. But it was their policies that created a lot of these situations. Now, there's some people who are just mentally ill and have issues, and we need to help them throughout. But other people, it's been induced by legalizing certain drugs and other things that just are downward spiraling. Some people should not be smoking pot. I mean, really. They're crazy enough sometimes before they smoke pot, and then they smoke pot, and then they get even crazier. So we need to stop this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So as you might know, with that case that I was talking particularly about with Victoria Lee, that is still an active investigation. So I'm curious to know, what would you look for in an attorney general? Because you would appoint the attorney general.
I would.
As governor, great.
It's one of the things I look forward to most, actually, is, like I said, we need police officers who are properly trained, of course, and they've all gotten that training. The thing I realized early on as mayor was police forces need good leadership, and police officers are really very well in tune with their chief. And at Englewood Cliffs, when I became mayor, we had a terrible chief. He's overpaid. He was paid $50,000 more than the chief in New York.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so he was... but he was also not a law enforcement officer at most of the time. He was more of a political hack, executing political issues and orders. And the whole force follows that. Once you get rid of him, and by the way, he had 26 police officers, and Ray Kelly in New York had 50,000, right?
Right.
But our guy was getting paid 50,000 more. Why? Well, because he was a friend of the family who ran the town, and he did a lot of terrible things for that family, right? Got rid of him, gone. Once you did that, the police officers were actually thanking me for giving them their careers back, their professionalism. Because all I ever said to people who worked in Englewood Cliffs was, just come to work and do your jobs.
So that job of attorney general, what are some characteristics? What do you...
Law and order.
Okay.
Law and order, no conflicts, no special interests, right down the middle, law and order. And also, there's state law and there's federal law. We have to adhere to federal law as a state. And our attorney general will not be. Right now, there's $1 million in our budget as a state to sue President Trump for his policies, right? And the state of California has the same line item of $50 million. Now, taxpayers don't want their money spent on craziness, right? And this is ridiculous that our governor has a $50,000 line item for his attorney general to sue our president. I sat at, it was very sad, a couple months ago, I sat at a funeral in Newark for the police officer who was shot by a 14-year-old. And I sat with the so-called dignitaries at the Basilica in Newark. And so this is a 14-year-old who shot and killed a 26-year-old police officer. And what was interesting for me was, and sad at the same time, we're at a funeral, and I see the Cory Bookers, the Murphy, Platkin, our Attorney General, the Mayor of Newark, former Governor McGreevey. Everybody's kind of saying, well, how could such a thing happen? How can a 14-year-old shoot and kill a 26-year-old police officer? And they're all kind of like in disbelief. And at one point, they didn't really know who I was until I said, well, it's your policies. It's your policies who created this situation to enable a 14-year-old to have an illegal gun to shoot a police officer. And we need to fix a lot of that. And an attorney general who's actually doing their job, which Platkin is not doing his job, he's just a political hack, for lack of better words, or a political operative, or what they call a social justice warrior. I mean, they've made a joke out of the position of attorney general and governor. We need to restore all that so people know that they can live in a state, work hard, pay low taxes, educate their children, and not have to worry about who the governor and attorney general are going to target or what law they're not going to enforce. I remember when I was mayor in Englewood Cliffs, people would come in and say, well, you know, the police chief has been there for so long, why are you being so hard on him? And I would just say to the people, well, of course they were his people, I say, well, what law would you like to enforce and which law wouldn't you like to enforce? Because we'll make a list. And then they would kind of get the message and I would just say, well, would you like to leave now? And they would leave, they would walk away. Okay. And these are not dumb people. These are highly educated people who get caught up in this system of political activism on behalf of one person, and they get blind to what's actually happening. We need to open up everyone's eyes, have full transparency, and just protect our residents.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I know we're running low on time.
We have hours, don't we?
No, unfortunately, I know. It's been very interesting getting to know you, and I'm sure that our voters would be, very interested in learning more of your perspective. So I have one last question that I wanted to ask you because you did mention, I believe it was California. So in New York and California, governors have introduced budgets that include millions of dollars in funding for nonprofits like AAPI New Jersey. Obviously, we're not there because we're a New Jersey-based organization. But this funding, it specializes in working with Asian American communities. So AAPI New Jersey has proposed that our state does the same thing in providing funding to support domestic violence programs, health centers, community programs, and other vital services to reach Asian Americans here in the state. So would you support something like that in your state budget?
So I don't really trust money going from the government to private organizations. It's just my personal feelings, having been an attorney for 35 years and seeing how money is doled out. I think it's more efficient to have the government work with groups, but have the government fund those programs directly to make sure that, because otherwise there's redundancy. If an organization is doing something and the government has a division doing the same thing, it's basically the taxpayers' money getting spent twice, once by the government and once to donate to another group. We need to streamline that and work with groups, of course, and support groups. For example, in New York on the Guardian Angels, we have after-school programs to keep kids safe after school. Mm-hmm. The government doesn't really support that because they have their own. It's self-supported, When Mayor Bloomberg was there, he would write a big check himself because he did the right thing. But we as a government are the stewards of our tax dollars, of the taxpayers' money. So we don't get to write checks. We don't get to borrow money just so we could write checks to support your group and another group and my group. It doesn't work, especially, like I said, the state government has all these divisions to take care of the mentally ill, to provide the domestic violence programs, irrespective of where the person is from. Everyone has the right to be protected.
Okay.
But we do need to work with people in communities because it's the community that knows the needs best, and we need to listen to those communities.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we are out of time, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk directly to the voters.
Sure.
And tell them why they should vote for you.
Why they should vote for me? Well, because I'm the only candidate who's actually beat the Democrat machine, beat it twice. I'm the only candidate who's actually been an executive running a town. a significant town with the same issues that are all over New Jersey, and I'm the only one who's able to do what I say I'll be able to do, and I've got a proven track record of doing it. So thank you for listening. I hope to have your vote. Go to mario4newjersey.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
The primary election is on June 10th. Voting by mail has already started, and you can vote early from June 3rd to the 8th. Thank you all so much for watching.